First, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank you for the workmanlike committee hearing you're holding. A couple of committees called off the committee when the Democrats asked for a witness. You've had everybody here before us, and you've had all the agencies here before us. This is what real oversight is about. I certainly appreciate the testimony of the witnesses, and I appreciate that you have been working under quite arduous circumstances. Actually, the gentleman from Texas presaged my concern, and that is, for lack of a better word, perhaps Mr. Long, I should turn to you, I will call preparation for the inevitable. Puerto Rico is an island. The Virgin Islands is a series of islands. Annually, if not annually, often, I should say, they are the objects of frequent hurricanes, floods, and other natural disasters almost on a predictable basis. Yet they are offshore, and unlike Texas, for example, which is far away perhaps from some supplies, or Florida, as we saw with the controversy about shipping, there is a big difference there. Yet it appears that the agencies were, if not unprepared, and it does look like they were unprepared on the ground, or may even have been surprised about these inevitable events, given the slow response, for example, that both Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are complaining of. So what I really want to know, given the inevitable, why there isn't a virtual branch of FEMA, for example, on these islands, why supplies aren't pre-positioned there so that this kind of a dispute, which is predictable about getting to the islands, does not come up. It's not as if this is the first time we have encountered this. I'd like to know what kind of preparations were made a year ago when there wasn't any hurricane, and what have you learned about pre-positioning for the next hurricane, which could be next year?
You know, ma'am, I can't speak for what happened a year ago. Again, I've been in office 132 days.
I'm talking about looking to what happened a year ago or the year before that to decide what you're going to do next year, for example.
Right. Well, first of all, we do have a Caribbean Area Division office. Okay, we do have people embedded.
Where is that located, sir?
It's in Puerto Rico, right outside of San Juan. And not only do we have staff there, we also have you know, commodities pre-staged.
Could you tell me something about supplies, any of you?
Sure.
Since these are offshore, why did supplies have to, a dispute have to arise about whether there were enough supplies there? Why weren't there enough supplies to at least begin to take care of a catastrophe?
So before the storm hit, or well, let's back up. After, you know, we were there before Irma. We were there after Irma. We were rebuilding the power grid as Irma was passing. The second thing is that as Maria was coming in, we resupplied, you know, food and commodities on the island in Puerto Rico. We also verified that Governor Rosselló had food in all of the shelters that were there. And the problem with an island, you know, an island community is that you can only shove so much food, so many staff into an island. And then you start to basically take away critical shelter spots for the citizens. So we actually had—
You take away what, I'm sorry?
You take away shelter spots from the citizens. We've mobilized almost 20,000 federal government workers.
Mr. Long, I'm talking about basically supplies. I know you can't pre-ship power, but when it comes to supplies, you could have a warehouse.
We do.
You know, and what I'm trying to ask is, have we learned that perhaps we need to pre-position a great many more supplies, basic supplies there, basic food, basic commodities, so that we don't have to depend upon how many trucks will pick up supplies in a devastation like Puerto Rico, for example, is experiencing? Have we learned, can we rent or build a warehouse in those island communities so that we're not so dependent upon getting there in the first place?
Yes, ma'am, we have a warehouse. The question is it large enough? And we haven't been able to do
Can
it
you make it
exhaustive.
larger? I'm
sorry,
asking you.
If I may answer the question. Yes, go ahead. The question is, we have not been allowed to do an after-action review. All the things, not just commodities. We do have a warehouse. The question is, how do we expand that? But also, what is the role and responsibility of also the state and local governments to do commodities, not only from Puerto Rico, but across the state? If you look at the model way it's done, Texas has their own pre-event contracts. They store their own food. We backfill their ability to do the first 72 to 120 hours worth of commodities if we're ever needed to be able to call in. Every state, every island should have that capability.
Thank the gentleman. With that, recognize Mr. Barletta for 5 minutes.
Thank you.